good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to all of our attendees tuning in from around the world. Today's broadcast of Invisible Women in Sport is an Institute for Sport and Social Justice production. I'm your producer, Garnett Overby III. All guests will be muted during this production, but I encourage you to use the chat feature to ask questions or leave a comment. We will reserve time at the end to answer your questions. So now, without further ado, I would like to welcome our host, Taylor Middleton.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 13 of Invisible Women in Sport. I am your host, Taylor Middleton, and today I am joined with Lisa Campos, the Vice President of Intercollegiate Athletics of UTSA. How are you doing today, Lisa?
I'm doing great. Lucky 13. I didn't know I was 13. So this is lucky 13.
We are flying by with these episodes. And like I told you before, we're going to do a quick little icebreaker with rapid fire. So it'll just be a series of questions. It'll be 30 seconds. If you don't get to all of them, it's totally fine. It's just something fun to do, get everybody loose and everything. And as well, people in the audience, you can blow up the chat with some of your answers if you would like to as well. So we are going to start in a couple seconds. I gotta set up
the pressure.
All right, you ready?
I'm ready.
3, 2, 1. Dresses or pantsuits?
Dresses.
Ice cream or candy?
Candy.
Pistachios or peanuts?
Ooh, pistachios.
Best lesson you have learned this year?
Persevere.
And then a goal that you have that you want to hit before the end of the year?
Ooh, that's a great one. There's a lot of them, but I'll say just focus on the journey.
Good. 2 seconds to spare.
Ah, very nice.
Not even that bad. So we're going to go ahead and get started real light. I know when we talked before, you had mentioned you were somewhat involved in sports. However, you were more so focused on education and you were first gen. So can you kind of talk about that experience and the expectations that you had on yourself or from your family going through that?
Yeah, so folks who've heard my story before know that, I grew up from a mom who came here from Mexico, a dad who didn't finish or who graduated college and got drafted Vietnam. And so, but in my household, education was very important. And my parents recognized being blue collar, that education was a path to a better life than what they had. So it was always ingrained that you were going to go to college. We weren't sure how that was going to be paid for. So it was always, the focus was make sure you get good grades because we know that there's scholarships out there. And but it was an area of importance in my family to certainly get an education.
Okay, so then how was it for you, like taking that path into college and those transitions? Were there any challenges you faced going through that?
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up in a town of about 3,500. There was 48 in my graduating class, one stoplight, one Dairy Queen. So to transition, I went to Colorado State University, and I always tell people they were very ahead of their time in serving and supporting first generation students.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately, I walked onto a campus that was 10 times the size of my little community, just the kids living on campus, let alone the size of the overall student population. And they immediately provided support services, very much like what we give our student athletes. And that really helped me get through college. But yeah, to have that dichotomy of going to college, but my family's family not understanding why I'm leaving, home, going 4 hours to attend a university, coming back home, and my friends who didn't go to college, feeling like, okay, you're too good for us, you're going to college, and we're still here in this life. So it was there was some difficulties for sure.
Mm. And I also know you had a little bit of a different pathway in the intercollegiate athletics, and you started in student affairs. So can you kind of talk about that transition going from starting in student affairs to switching over to athletics?
Absolutely. So because of my background, I didn't even realize that there was a career in higher education. But because of all the support I got at CSU, I became familiar with the Student Affairs and Higher Education graduate program, and fortunately was accepted and got through that program. And that's what I envision my life. I am in higher education to help students, particularly students who look like me, who had the same experiences that I did. And so that's the career path I was on, was to be a vice president for student affairs. I didn't know about this world of athletics. I played sports in high school, had some opportunities to play Division II basketball, but really wanted to focus on my academics. But fast forward, I was working at University of Texas at El Paso, UTEP. And long story, but one of my good friends, she was leaving her position in athletics. We were running partners, and she asked, are you interested in this position? I was like, I have no experience in intercollegiate athletics, but I hit the check marks for the athletic director. I was already in El Paso. I was young, had a strong work ethic. I was already connected with so many folks on campus. And he's like, Lisa, you will learn the job. And really, my mentors in student affairs, they're like, Lisa, athletics needs more people with your background in student development and student affairs. And I've never looked back since. I've really enjoyed being on the dark side of campus, as my student affairs colleagues would call it.
Man, so being that it seems as though student affairs seems to be very separate from athletics, was there any type of stigma kind of coming over into that realm, or bringing more so of an emphasis on academic affairs into athletics when you were at El Paso?
Yeah, this was back in the early 2000s, and it would be fun to talk to coaches back then, because all of a sudden I came in and I was bringing diversity and inclusion training. I was bringing in Cleary, Title IX training, things that are now, we're used to seeing that within athletic programs, but they had never been exposed to anything like that. And I really took a student focus, which I still do now. And not to say that, coaches and athletic administrators who don't have that experience or that background don't, but I think it was at a different level, the things that I had learned in my student affairs background. So yes, I definitely brought a flair of student affairs and student focused initiatives. But also learned the athletic side of it as well.
That's great. So then can you touch on what that first year was like, being fully immersed into the dark side of athletics and switching over from student affairs?
Yeah, it was a steep learning curve. And I would say probably the first couple of years was a steep learning curve, not understanding the vernacular, not understanding the acronyms, just I hadn't lived and breathed it. I had always grown up in student affairs. And I will forever be thankful to Stephanie Rump, who's now at LSU and has had such a tremendous career, that she, even though she was starting a new position, that woman would take my call any day, any time of day, to say, okay, what is this coach talking about? And what is happening in this world of athletics? And would help walk me through all of those things. And so she had a huge impact. And then my boss, Bob, was also very instrumental, that he helped me develop and gave me that opportunity to grow and empowered me.
Well, that's great. And clearly you have made your stance well known in this world, especially with the new breaking of race. And if Garnett could cue up that video for us, we wanted to show kind of what that new building looks like, and just if you can touch on what that means to you and what that is after we play the video. So
Sure.
Garnett, when you get a chance. I think if he's here. There we go. Uh-oh. I think there's some difficulty with playing it full screen. It's until we get that underway. Can you tell us a little bit about what race is and what that means for San Antonio?
Absolutely. So you all can see my huge grin, smile ear to ear, that this has been a vision for many years for this community and for our student athletes in our department. And when I got here, I knew that our constituents had really been talking about this, wanting this. And And we got on it in 2018. We hired an architect to design and program this facility. And I don't think until even when we broke ground, which was the week before COVID shut everything down, we broke ground on this facility. And you fast forward 17 months later, and this week I moved into my brand new office and could not be more excited. Our student athletes have not seen it. Our grand opening will be next week. And but it's something that our student athletes deserve. It literally was not keeping up with the Joneses. You know, we have a very young football program. We've only had football for 10 years, and the infrastructure just hadn't caught up with the great success we've been having in football. And so for instance, our sports medicine program was literally the past 10 years operating out of a trailer, out of a modular building. And so to get this for our student athletes, for the pride that our coaches and staff and students will have for this, to help with the recruiting, to help really, our community continue to engage and support us, that we could not be more proud of this.
Well, thank you also for explaining what that is for our audience. And as you can see, Garnett has the video up for us so we can see what this great experience is going to be for these athletes. So. Thank you, Garnett, for that. That's definitely going to be transforming a lot of the lives of those athletes at your campus. And even seeing some of those areas, can you talk about, even with the sports medicine section, just the benefit of that for the athletes, and then also your partnership with UT Health now?
Yeah, it's really incredible. As I look at that video, it's amazing how identical the actual building came out to those to that design and those images. But one of the areas we recognized when I first got here was we had an incredible opportunity to partner with our UT Health sister. We have a health sciences center. It's a sister institution under the UT system brand, and we had an unbelievable opportunity to partner with them to provide the best healthcare to our student athletes, and whether that was the orthopedic side, the mental health, the nutrition, that they have an incredible amount of services, and it's going to be a win-win. They've hired athletic trainers for us. They've hired a team doctor for us. So it's an incredible opportunity. And now we have the space to actually do rehab and recovery and everything else our students need.
Well, that's definitely great. And even just with such a big project like that, I know you mentioned COVID kind of springing it on all of us. So can you talk about kind of navigating that space in those unprecedented times in the middle of such a large project for the school?
Yeah, it's really, I think we were lucky, that we broke ground a few days before everything shut down, because who knows what this project would have looked like. And it continued to be constructed during COVID. But during COVID, I'll tell you, the lessons learned is that we were very transparent with our coaches, whether it was about this facility, whether it was about the protocols, the tough decisions we were going to have to make with our budget. We had to do some salary reductions for a short amount of time. We kept our coaches and our staffs very informed on what was happening. And in retrospect, they very much appreciated that. They didn't understand as they were going through it, but as they talked with their colleagues, they were like, Lisa, we feel like we were the most informed department. Their colleagues just weren't getting that information real time. And we thought that was really important. But what it also showed is we have really resilient coaches and student athletes. And, we always talk about our focus. And again, my student affairs background is always going to be on the students and how we have an impact on their experience. And our coaches and our staff did not lose sight of that. And every decision we made, it was with the student athlete top of mind.
I see that all of those aspects are definitely coming into play. Can you kind of talk about the core values that you have for your athletics program, and then also for new hires that you guys have coming in? Because I saw that you guys did hire a few new coaches for some of the programs. So how's that been for you as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Hiring is so important, and getting the right people on board and surrounding yourself by people who are better than you and who are going to invest, and to your point, who are going to adopt the values and the principles and the culture that we have. And it's student first, and we really mean that. And we talk about having unity and working with one another, being collaborative, having excellence. And our mission is, or I'll tell you, our vision at UTSA, and you saw it in the video, is to transform lives as San Antonio's nationally recognized Division I program. And that's aspirational. We're not there yet, but we're hiring people who have that vision, who have the drive, who want to get us there. And then our mission, number one, is to develop champions in competition, in academics, and in life. We want to be an integral part of the undergraduate student experience, and we want to engage the community of San Antonio and beyond. So when we're hiring folks, we are looking at, are they student focused? Are they doing this for the love of developing students? And how are they going to fit into this organizational culture? And as you mentioned, this past year, I hired Coach Traylor, our football coach, hired him in December of 19. He had a couple of months, January through February or through March in 2020 to get to know his team, and then COVID hit. And the way he responded, he hired a staff. The way he responded, we had the George Floyd incident, just all these things were happening. And he's a new coach, a brand new first-time head coach at this level, and then new to UTSA. We ended up having one of the best seasons in program history, and we're a young program. We went to a bowl game for the second time in program history. He did a remarkable job, and that's what we look for is, it was all because he's student focused, figured out how to relate to those students. He worked incredibly hard. And then we had an opportunity to hire Karen Aston this past March in women's basketball. And those two are high energy. They care about students and they really fit the culture. But those are two recent hires that we've been able to have in the last year.
Well, congrats with that, because bringing in new coaches can always be a little shaky depending on like the group that you have, and just like the athletes in its own. But it's clear that you've definitely made an impact on that program, and definitely have tried your best to create an atmosphere for the student athletes where they feel supported and loved and wanted by their administrators and their coaches. So even outside of that, you've also made sure to impact the university as a whole with the set the expectation. Can you talk about that and the Tracy rule and how it's impacted the university as well?
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up. That is something that we are really proud of. I had the opportunity to hear Brenda's story back when I was the athletic director at NAU, and she presented to the Big Sky Conference athletic directors. I immediately brought her to NAU to talk to our student athletes. And then I got to UTSA shortly after that and said, this is one of our very first initiatives. We are bringing Brenda Tracy to talk to our student athletes. And if you all have ever heard her story, it's impactful, and her message is incredible, and it's a message that people will gravitate to. And as soon as our student athletes listened to her message, they were on board. They're like, what can we do? We want to do more. And then it trickled into the rest of our campus. All of a sudden, we had Greek fraternities coming to us saying, okay, we want to bring Brenda back, and we want to be one of the first fraternities to sign this pledge. And we had our student government association proclaim, Brenda Tracy Day and celebrate what she's doing. So the entire campus really embraced this, and we look forward to having her back. But it really goes into, we were the very first university who signed the Brenda Tracy rule, and, tying behavior to eligibility. And it's such a simple concept. And we weren't sure how our coaches were going to react to this. We knew it was the right thing to do. And our coaches have embraced it. It sends a message to the recruits what's important to us. It sends a message to parents about the safe environment we want to have in our department and our campus. And it's been really wonderful, and it's been really embraced by our department, student athletes, coaches, everybody.
That's really good. Title IX is cool, but I definitely think that there should be more initiatives on campus surrounded about that. And I think it's definitely important that the president of the school also supported you guys with that as well. And even outside of that, being a vice president of intercollegiate athletics at UTSA, you are a mom, you're a woman, and more specifically, you're a Latin woman. So can you talk about being Latina and how great it's been for you working for a more predominantly Hispanic university?
Yeah, absolutely. When I look at my career, that universities like UTEP, like UTSA, like NAU have really been attractive to me because of the students that they serve. UTEP and UTSA being Hispanic serving institutions, NAU serving, and all three serving first generation college students. That's what drives me, and that's what excites me. So I have the opportunity to serve our student athletes, but also have an opportunity to be a role model, not only to our students here at UTSA, but to all the little Latina girls that are wanting to go to college and need to see more women and more role models in their lives. So it's great to do that and be that here in San Antonio. And I embrace that and just love being in institutions like this.
Can you also talk about just becoming a new mom, like while transitioning into this role? How is that for you?
Yeah, so I had my son later in life. I was already an athletic director at NAU, and funny story, we were going through a presidential change. And I literally had just had my son Christopher, and it was 3-4 days later, and I got a call from the outgoing president saying, hey, the new president wants to meet with you tonight. And I said, listen, has anyone told her I just had a baby? Like, I don't know what I'm looking like. I don't know. I lack of sleep. I don't know what's going to come out of my mouth. Can I, have I want to meet her, but can I have a pass of what might just kind of come out of my mouth? But we met, and she was wonderful and understood, but it was an incredible experience. And I'll never forget one of our donors. I'm like, okay, how is this going to look? He said, Lisa, you make it look how you want, because none of these coaches have ever worked, or staff have probably ever worked for a woman who just became a new mom. Mm-hmm. And so you set the example, and you be the role model about how you want that to look. And so I always kept that in the back of my mind.
That is definitely great. Can you kind of touch on the legacy that you would like to leave behind once all of this is over, you decide to step out of your position? I know there's some things that you've also started as far as scholarships as well for first gen students. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. So, in my professional life, I really, kind of out of my tombstone would want it to read that I had a positive influence and impact on the lives of 18 to 22-year-olds at the universities that I served at, that they remember, whatever experience or opportunity I gave them. And for my family, that in the meantime, while I was being a professional woman, that I also was able to serve my family and being the best mom that I could. And then, again, I just go back to my experiences and having, just no concept of what college was going to be like and how I was going to navigate that and how I was going to pay for that, and having supportive parents who said you can do it. But financially, I was really fortunate at CSU to get a first generation scholarship. And so, gosh, it's probably been 6 or 7 years ago. In the name of my parents, I started my husband and I started a first generation scholarship award at CSU, just to pay it forward. That I didn't do this alone. I had so many people who helped me get to where I am, and I definitely want to pay it forward, particularly for first generation students.
That's wonderful to hear. It's definitely important, I think, especially for even like generations of mine, like definitely creating those spaces for women, particularly for me, for Black women, for little girls to see that like we can all do this. You can get to that point, you'll be fine. So I definitely think that's important. But we also know, like, as women in this space, it's not always that easy. So can you kind of talk about some of the challenges you faced kind of coming into the sports industry as a Latina woman and how you overcame some of those?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And, it's breaking the traditions, right? It's breaking the mindset that women can't be leaders, women can't be particularly athletic directors, that's for a male, even though it's a male dominated industry, that there's still traditional thinking that you have to be an old football coach to lead an athletic program. And I certainly have heard that. I
Mhm.
always tell the story of how when I was being introduced as the athletic director, my husband would be standing next to me and the hand would automatically go out to him to shake his hand and congratulate
Mhm.
him. And he's like, nope, not me. It's her. She's the athletic director. To a point where he just started walking behind me because he was, it was just so awkward. And so breaking those tradition and those traditional ways of thinking. And there's an incredible group of of women athletic directors that we are always in communication and just supporting one another, because we need one another to help break that traditional thinking. But there's certainly been a lot of uphill battles, and I think it all just stems again back to just breaking a traditional way of thinking about things.
Well, thank you so much, Lisa. It's been so great talking to you. I'm actually coming up on our last question for today. So if anyone in the audience has any questions for Lisa, please drop them in the chat. And so again, just to finish us off, is there any advice you would give to women looking to enter in the sports industry, whether they may be my age or a little bit older?
Yeah, I've just been so blessed to have great mentors and to have people who have helped me along. So I would say number one, that we don't do this alone. We need to have an army behind us who know our intentions, who are going to help develop us and who are going to get the best out of us. And then when you're in these positions, hire people who are better than you. Surround yourself by great people, and then pay it forward. Again, I have a great responsibility, I think about. And I had male mentors, I had female mentors, I had just, you can get mentorship and networking from all sorts of different people. But I would say too, in athletics, I think we sometimes think, oh, she's too busy to help. I tell you that I will take those phone calls when people just want to pick my brain, if they want to learn about how to be an athletic director, or get career advice. That I just think it's really important to take time. Although it is a busy schedule, I want to give back to folks, and that's the only way we're going to continue to break the mold, is to
Mhm.
help bring others along with us.
Well, thank you so much. I'm going to pass it off to Garnett for our Q&A, and then we'll wrap up after that.
Great, thank you so much.
Lisa, thank you so much. This has been a wonderful time spent with you. We do have a few questions. The first question comes from our very own Olivia Wiggins. She asks, how do you deal with failure? And also, being where you are now, what is your long-term career goal?
That's a great question. So in terms of failure, you probably all have gotten a sense. I'm a pretty even keel person. I'm not up, I'm not down. And I think when I think about failure, it's just learning experiences that, we got to pick ourselves up and keep going and learn from that experience. Because if you don't learn from it, then it really becomes a failure. Listen, I have made great decisions and I've made really bad decisions. But I've also listened to people around me so that those bad decisions haven't been so catastrophic, right? That I'm still in the positions that I am today. But you have got to learn from those. And I just have a personality that I put it behind me and move forward after I've really learned lessons from that. Moving forward, I love being in higher education. I can't see myself doing anything else. I often joke though, at some point in my life, I want to see what corporate world looks like, maybe even just for a day. Maybe I just I wonder what that looks like. But higher education is definitely my thing. So, you know, who knows what intercollegiate athletics is going to look like next year, tomorrow, 10 years from now. But I will always be in higher education, whether that's in intercollegiate athletics, whether that's being a professor. Like, this is where my heart is.
That's outstanding. You have enough professional sports teams in San Antonio. Maybe you can go do a shadowing day with one of them and see that corporate side of it, but still keeping it in sports.
That's a great idea.
We have a question from Lindsay Ekwerekwu, and I hope I said that name correctly. She tried to help me phonetically say it right. So Lindsay, I apologize if I messed it up. Her question actually builds off of the last question that Taylor asked you. What is one piece of advice that you would give a professional, specifically a woman, who has a goal of being an athletic director, but might not feel confident enough to pursue that goal?
Right, that's a great question. So probably not one piece of advice, but multiple pieces is, number one, make sure you're working for someone who's giving you the experiences you need to be an athletic director, right? That's why I worked under an incredible athletic director who, here was my job, get your job done. But Lisa, if you want to do these other things to prepare you to be an athletic director, I'm going to support you. And he, when you look at he was an old football coach, and a ton of his assistants became head football coaches when he was an athletic director. A lot of his associate athletic directors became athletic directors. And so I am forever grateful to him that he knew how to develop people and to put me in positions to be that athletic director or to be in a position to take that role. The other piece of that advice is go do it. Like, I think women underestimate themselves all the time, and we hear about this all the time, that we put out a position description, and 9 out of 10 times males are applying for it that don't have hardly any of the qualifications. And the women are like, okay, if I don't have every single one of the qualifications, I'm not going to apply for it. And we see that all the time. So, make your intentions known, network, let people know, like, this is what I want to do, and you're going to have an incredible source of people who are going to help you get there. So, again, surround yourself by a great manager, leader, let your intentions be known, and you just got to jump, make that leap and do it.
Awesome, thank you. Lisa, this question actually comes from me. And you talked a lot about your support group and your personal support group from your family as well as professional, and breaking the traditions. It is a still male-dominated field. So from me as a man, and I'm in a position of influence, how do I break those traditions without, messing it up? Sometimes I'm well-intentioned, but the intention doesn't, measure up with the impact, and it can come off the wrong way sometimes. Or maybe you can talk about some of the experiences that you have had with men that have broke the traditions and what that looked like.
Yeah, I think, to your point, I think when you think about it's all communication, it's all understanding intent. And I don't, for the most part, I don't think people are intending to be stereotypical or to be racist or whatever it is. And it's really building the relationships. I think in any of our positions, it is building those relationships, cultivating those relationships, and then really getting, understanding what's your intent, what is your true intent. And I think from when I work with a variety of constituents, right, from donors to faculty to alumni to parents and it's always they're all motivated by something different. I feel the obligation to get to know all those individuals and then understand what is their intent and what they're doing. So I don't know if that makes sense or answers your question, but I think it's about relationships and understanding where people are coming from.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. And then we had one more question. It actually comes from Taylor. So I'm going to pass it back to her and let her ask that question.
All righty. So for mine, I just asked, what was your most favorite memory since working in athletics?
Oh my goodness, well, it might be next week as we cut the ribbon to this facility because it's been an incredible process. And I know this sounds cliche, but I love getting out of the office and just going to games and practices and seeing our students do what they love doing. Like they know I'm going to be there to support them. They have no idea what I'm doing in my office supporting them, but they see me at their games and supporting them. And then the graduation, like, oh my God, I have an incredible opportunity to meet students when they're being recruited and then being on that stage when they graduate. And as a vice president, I literally sit on the stage and I'll jump out of my seat and go hug them on the stage. And particularly those ones who just maybe never thought that they'd get there. So just knowing that at the end of the day, that's what we're doing, is providing an exceptional experience culminating in graduation.
Well, I think that's a great way to wrap up our session on that note. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I really enjoyed our conversation and just getting to know you. Dr. Paula Jackson, she said Lisa is absolutely fabulous mentor. I love her. So you're doing
I love you, Paula. Nice to see you.
So we're going to go ahead and wrap up with our session. Thank you to everyone who joined us today.
Thank you so much.
I don't know. All righty. I think that Garnett might have had some issues. So we're going to go ahead and just continue on. So for everyone who's here, tune in on August 12th at 2 p.m. for episode 14. I'll be speaking with Natasha Oakes. She's the Executive Senior Associate AD for Compliance, an SWA and Chief Diversity Officer at North Texas. You can also follow us on all social media platforms to stay up to date and inform on future programs at Institute SSJ. If you ever miss an episode, we got you covered on YouTube. We'll also have all our episodes posted and up to date. Again, we thank you for all of your support for Invisible Women in Sport. We are a nonprofit organization. We usually post our QR code. So if you have a chance after the show, please support us with the financial gift as we continue to change lives through the power of sport. I also want to thank everyone who is here on our call: Lisa, our guest, Garnett Overby III, our producer, our advising consultant, Matt Edelson, our GAs, Olivia Wiggins and Larissa Campello, and our blog writer, Kennedy Collins. Again, please follow us on all social media platforms to stay up to date and informed on future programs. And also to any of our viewers, we will be sending out a survey after this. Please make sure to fill it out following today's episode and submit it to us. We also are still getting a lot of inquiries. If you have any connections to internships from any of our supporters, please send them to our producer, Garnett Overby, at goverby@ucf.edu so we can send it out to everyone. And then again, just tune in on August 12th at 2 p.m. for episode 14, where I'll be speaking with Natasha. So I'm your host for Invisible Women in Sport, and see us now. Thank you everyone who came today, and we really appreciate you.